Vince Gill with 21 awards. Gill holds more Grammy wins than any other male country artist of the 1990s. In fact, he took home at least one trophy every single year during that decade. His death, it killed me. But his life, his journey inspired me. I've won instrumental Grammy awards in the past. Some for songs I wrote, some for my vocals, some for duets I did with others, and even one for producing a record. Early life. In the world of country music, we all know him. A man with a sweet voice and a generous heart. A musician who gave us hit after hit, snagged over 20 Grammy awards, and landed more than 100 songs on the charts. And the Grammy goes to Music Q, Vince Gill. But behind the spotlight, behind the smiles and the trophies, there's another story, one of sorrow, one of grief. The story of a young boy with a guitar who climbed his way to stardom, became a lead singer for the legendary Eagles, yet endured heartbreaking losses of loved ones, of health, and over $5 million in financial downfall. Join us as we uncover the untold chapters of Vince Gill's life, the pain he kept buried until it could no longer be silenced. Norman, Oklahoma, where the music began. In the small, quiet town of Norman, Oklahoma, music wasn't just entertainment, it was in the air. It flowed through the streets like a river. And it was here that Vince Gill's story began. Born on April 12, 1957, Vince was the youngest of 4 children, raised by parents who would shape his destiny in ways they never imagined. His father, a lawyer by trade, had music running through his veins. He was a complex man, Vince once shared. We struggled. It was your typical father-son relationship. Strict, hard. A lot I didn't enjoy. But every evening, like clockwork, his father would pick up his guitar, strum a few chords, and share his love for music. Those simple, quiet moments sparked something deep inside Vince. His mother played her part too. She wasn't just a supportive mom. She was a musician in her own right. She played the harmonica and filled the house with songs. Music was the heartbeat of their home. From the oldest to the youngest, the whole family had a role to play. They'd gather around the radio, letting the outside world in, one melody at a time. Golf also bonded the family, but music always stood at the center. At just 5 years old, Vince first held a guitar. Not in school, not from a teacher, but from his grandmother. "My first memory of music," he once recalled. Granny playing "How Great Thou Art" on the piano. She was pretty accomplished. She gave him an old guitar, and little Vince sat by her side, strumming. That small wooden instrument was his first ticket into a world full of wonder. By the time he turned 8, something magical happened. Alongside his brother Bob, he sat by the radio, soaking in the energy of Long Tall Texan by the Beach Boys. They didn't just listen, they felt it, they played it. They picked up their instruments and jammed, turning radio waves into real sound. A bond was forged, a brotherhood built through music. As Vince grew older, so did his love for the guitar. At 11, he met Julian Aine, a skilled guitarist who would become a mentor and guide. Julian saw something in young Vince, a raw, untamed talent, and under his guidance, Vince sharpened his skills, soaking in every lesson. "I told him, I'm turning down this sure thing," Vince said, "because if I don't believe in myself, how can anyone else?" This wasn't just about guitar lessons. It was a transformation. Vince wasn't just learning to play. He was learning to become. The first stage, the first fear. All through school, Vince kept playing, kept pushing. His passion was undeniable. But there was one thing he had to conquer: stage fright. His first performance was at a school event. He was terrified. But the moment the lights hit, with a guitar in his hand, he stepped up, and he played his heart out. He surprised not only the audience, but himself. That moment confirmed what he already suspected. Music wasn't just a hobby, it was his purpose, the road to stardom. But talent alone wasn't enough. The journey ahead was steep. Like every aspiring artist, Vince faced rejection, setbacks, sleepless nights wondering if he'd ever make it. He worked tirelessly, writing, playing, performing, all for a dream that still felt just out of reach. But with every lyric, every string plucked, he moved a little closer. Nobody knew that behind the calm, boyish face of the kid from Norman was a fire that refused to go out. Tragedy, loss, and heartbreak. Vince Gill's path to success wasn't just paved with melodies and applause. It was also marked by loss. The first devastating blow came early. His half-brother, Bob Cohen, the very same brother who had shared the radio and played music with him, was killed in a horrific car crash. Vince was just 11 years old. That loss changed everything. Bob wasn't just a brother. He was a musical partner, a friend, and the first person who believed in Vince's sound. The silence Bob left behind, it echoed in Vince's heart for years. Vince would later write songs in Bob's memory, turning his grief into melody, his heartbreak into healing. But that wasn't the end of tragedy for Vince. Years later, during the height of his career, his father, the man who had introduced him to the guitar, passed away after battling a long illness. And despite their complicated relationship, Vince felt the loss deeply. He once said, "My dad was tough on me, but I owe him everything." That pain, that unresolved tension, bled into his songwriting, into the quiet notes of his ballads, into every chord that seemed to ache with memory. The personal and the professional collide. As Vince's career soared, his personal life wavered. He went through a divorce, a painful, public unraveling of a marriage that had lasted nearly 2 decades. The experience left him shaken, not just emotionally but spiritually. He poured himself into music, using the stage as therapy, his lyrics as confessionals. Songs like "Whenever You Come Around" and "Look at Us" touched fans not just because they were beautifully written, but because they were real. They came from a man who had felt the weight of love and the sting of its absence. Redemption and love again. But fate wasn't finished with Vince. In the early 2000s, he found love again, this time in the arms of singer Amy Grant. Their connection was instant, their bond strong. Together, they built a life of faith, family, and harmony. They blended their families, supported each other's careers, and healed together. For Vince, Amy wasn't just a second chance. She was a light in the darkness. He often speaks about her with a quiet reverence, as if still in awe of how she entered his life. "She's the reason I sing softer," he once joked. "Because when she talks, everyone listens." The $5 million blow. At the height of his fame, Vince suffered a massive financial blow, a staggering $5 million loss from a failed investment. It wasn't just a financial hit, it was a gut punch, the kind that shakes your confidence. But true to form, Vince didn't let it define him. He kept working, kept playing, kept giving back. And through it all, he never let bitterness take root. His response: "Money comes and goes, integrity doesn't." Health scares and a slower rhythm. In recent years, Vince faced health scares that forced him to slow down. He canceled shows, cut back on touring, and spent more time at home with family. But he didn't disappear. He just shifted the rhythm, from stages and lights to quiet nights and deeper conversations. He reflected more, wrote differently, sang softer. It wasn't a retreat, it was an evolution, legacy of a gentle giant. Today, Vince Gill is more than a musician. He's a mentor, a storyteller, a gentle soul whose songs have touched millions. He's won 21 Grammys, recorded over 20 studio albums, been inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. And yet, when you listen to him talk, there's still a trace of that humble boy from Norman, Oklahoma, a boy who once sat with a small guitar in his grandmother's lap, dreaming of nothing more than playing music that mattered. And he did, not just because of his talent, but because of his heart. Because behind every song Vince Gill ever wrote, behind every note he ever played, was a lifetime of love, loss, and quiet, unwavering grace. Oklahoma was on the edge of something incredible. Vince Gill's story was unfolding, and the world was about to witness the rise of a true musical legend. It all began with a big gesture. A gift from one country music legend gave a small-town band the chance to play again. And that spark lit the fire for everything that came next. Music career begins. Vince Gill's journey into the music world wasn't just a path. It was a battle, a fight driven by passion, talent, and a hunger that refused to quit. He took the leap when he joined a bluegrass band called Mountain Smoke. There, surrounded by other musicians, sharing late nights and long sets, Vince's skills began to bloom. With every song, every performance, his love for music only grew deeper. And with each note, he stepped closer to his destiny. As a young man, Vince was ready for it all. The good, the bad, the unforgiving music industry. He wasn't afraid. He was driven. Playing at local shows gave him his first taste of belonging in a musical community. Slowly but surely, his name started to buzz. People noticed. He was learning, growing, adjusting after every gig. But the road wasn't always kind. One night during a performance, things turned ugly. The audience started throwing objects at the band, and Vince, young, bold, and full of fire, didn't take it lightly. He flipped off the crowd and walked off stage. It was shocking, but it showed one thing very clearly. Vince Gill did not tolerate disrespect. He would stand his ground, no matter what. The big break. Soon luck turned. In 1978, Vince was offered a massive opportunity to join the band Pure Prairie League as their lead singer. "First time I saw him," one bandmate said. "He was with Mountain Smoke. I asked if he wanted in. He said yes." Pure Prairie League was already known as a launchpad for big names. And with Vince's warm yet powerful voice leading the way, they created a new sound. They released hits, but one song became unforgettable. "Let Me Love You Tonight." It exploded across the charts, earning love from fans around the world. For a moment, it seemed like Vince had found his place. Fame, music, momentum. But success, as always, is fragile. Eventually, the band split, not from drama, but from direction. Some wanted to go rock, others leaned pop, and some, like Vince, were drawn to the heart and soul of country. The weight of success, the different visions. It pulled the group apart, and just like that, Vince was on his own, going solo. It was a turning point, and it came with risk. Going solo meant no backup, no safety net. Just Vince, his voice, his guitar, and his will. He started writing, kept performing. He didn't know where it would all lead, but he knew he had to try. The beginning was rough. There were struggles, setbacks, nights when quitting looked easier than continuing. But Vince didn't quit. Every hard moment became part of his foundation. Each hardship built the resilience that would define his legacy. Slowly, he began to find his solo voice, and slowly, the world began to listen. Legacy. The 1990s were Vince Gill's golden era. He was finally being seen, not just as a performer, but as a voice that carried something rare. Sweet, sincere, unmistakable. His voice was now his signature. Respect from fans turned into reverence from peers. He wasn't just making music anymore. He was shaping the future of country, and the awards followed. Grammy after Grammy, a total of 22. And the Grammy goes to When I Call Your Name, Vince Gill. "Thank you very much," Vince said on stage. "I've watched this show for 33 years. This is the first time I ever got to come." Each award was more than a trophy. It was a story, a symbol of every lonely night on the road, every time he questioned himself, every hour spent perfecting a single song. Winning a Grammy isn't just about talent. It's about connection, about crafting music that makes people feel something. For Vince, those awards weren't for ego. They were for the journey, for his brother, for his father, for his past, for the small-town boy who refused to give up. And in every win, in every moment of applause, you could see it. Vince Gill wasn't just making music. He was making history, more than music. Vince Gill's legacy goes far beyond the songs we sing, the awards on his shelf, or the crowds that cheered his name. He's more than a country music icon. He's a storyteller, a man who turned pain into poetry, who transformed sorrow into songs that touched the world. Behind every lyric he wrote was a piece of his truth. Behind every note, a memory. He didn't chase fame, he earned it. Through kindness, through humility, through unwavering dedication to his craft. He gave us music that made us smile, music that made us cry, and music that made us feel like we weren't alone. The influence. Vince inspired a generation, not just through his sound, but through the way he carried himself. Younger artists look up to him, not only for his voice, but for his grace. He's worked with legends. He's mentored rising stars. He's stayed grounded, even when the world called him a giant. Family and faith. In his personal life, he found peace in the arms of Amy Grant. Together, they built a home rooted in love, in music, and in faith. For Vince, family means everything. He's a husband, a father, a friend, and when he sings, you can hear all of that. You can hear a man who's lived deeply, loved fully, and never forgotten where he came from. Final notes. From Norman, Oklahoma, to the Grand Ole Opry, from garage bands to Grammy stages, Vince Gill's journey is proof that greatness isn't just about talent, it's about heart, and if you ask him, he'd probably just smile, shrug, and say he's still that same kid holding a guitar in his grandmother's lap, still learning, still playing, still thankful because in the end, the real Vince Gill isn't just found in awards or charts. He's found in the quiet power of a song. That says exactly what we needed to hear. More than an artist, a symbol of perseverance. By now, Vince Gill had become more than just a country star. He had become a symbol of perseverance, of resilience, of what it means to keep going even when the world pushes back. Through every high and low, every stumble, and every standing ovation, Vince showed us that staying true to your craft, even when it hurts, can lead to something extraordinary, becoming one of the most successful solo male artists of his time. Earning 22 Grammy Awards was no small feat, but for Vince, it wasn't just about the accolades. It was about the nights he spent alone writing songs, the hours of practice behind closed doors, the quiet moments where all he had was faith in the music and belief in himself. Each Grammy, not just a trophy, but a milestone in a journey built on sacrifice, passion, and heart. As he stood on stage, Grammy in hand, he wasn't just celebrating success. He was honoring every struggle that brought him there, every moment of doubt, every rejection, every risk. The music industry had tested him, and Vince didn't just survive. He thrived. The Eagles call. Then, out of the blue, a phone call that would change everything again. It was Irving Azoff, the longtime manager of the Eagles. He had a question. Would Vince consider joining the band? At first, Vince was stunned. The Eagles were legendary. Rock icons, the heartbeat of the 1970s. He was honored and nervous because this wasn't just any band. This was Glenn Frey's band, and Glenn's voice had defined the Eagles' sound. Could he fill those shoes? Would fans ever accept him? That question haunted Vince. He knew he could never replace Glenn Frey. But maybe he didn't have to. Maybe he was meant to bring his own voice, his own soul, to honor Glenn's legacy, while staying true to himself. And so he did, song by song, show by show. Vince made peace with the pressure. He wasn't a stand-in. He wasn't a copy. He was Vince Gill, a voice from Oklahoma, joining a new chapter in a timeless band. And the fans, they welcomed him with open arms. Personal life, love, loss, and legacy. Vince Gill's story isn't just about music. It's about love. It's about grief. It's about the silent battles no one sees. Few people knew the pain he carried behind that calm smile. One of the hardest moments of his life came with the death of his brother, Bob. Bob wasn't just a sibling. He was Vince's best friend, his earliest musical partner, his foundation. Together, they shared childhood dreams and late-night jam sessions. And then, one night, it all ended. A tragic accident took Bob from Vince's life forever. One of the most trying times of my life, Vince would later say. I felt like a part of me died with him. The grief was unbearable, but instead of burying it, Vince turned to music. He wrote Go Rest High on That Mountain, a song so raw, so personal, that it brought millions to tears. It wasn't just a song, it was Vince's soul, grieving, aching, saying goodbye in the only way he knew how. The fall, financial collapse. But life wasn't done testing him. Even with his career flourishing, Vince found himself facing a new enemy, financial devastation. In 2021, he invested $500,000 in a company called Blue Sky Tech. It vanished, just gone. He then put $700,000 into a green energy startup. He lost nearly $400,000 of it, still hoping to recover. He turned to cryptocurrency, only to lose another $300,000. And the most crushing blow, a $1 million investment in Sinner Entertainment, a gamble he believed in. That left him with a $900,000 loss. One by one, the pillars of his financial stability collapsed. The pressure was intense, the stress nearly unbearable. He had built a career on hard work, only to watch his savings disappear. Combined with the grief of losing Bob, Vince found himself battling heartbreak, anxiety, and a quiet but powerful despair. He didn't speak about it often, but when he did, he was honest. It was humbling, he once said. You think success makes you untouchable. It doesn't. To be continued. Just when Vince thought things couldn't get worse, life had more heartbreak in store. But even in those moments of despair, his music remained. His voice didn't break. It deepened. His lyrics didn't fade. They grew richer. Because that's who Vince Gill is, a man who turns pain into poetry, a legend who still walks among us, with humility, grace, and a song for every soul who's ever felt alone. The fall, the fight, and the faith. The moment that nearly broke Vince Gill came in July 2022. His beloved wife, Amy Grant, suffered a terrible bicycle accident while riding with a friend. She fell hard, so hard that she was rushed to the hospital and kept under close watch for days. Vince, who had always drawn strength from Amy's warmth and faith, was now watching her suffer. And for a man who had faced loss before, this pain was different. Watching someone you love struggle to heal, that's a special kind of heartbreak. But Amy was a fighter. She pushed through. Her strength amazed Vince and inspired him in ways he never expected. Still, Vince admitted it was one of the hardest things he'd ever witnessed. And just as he thought life might offer some calm, another blow came. This time, it was his own health. In 2016, Vince began experiencing severe issues with his vocal cords. Years of performing, recording, and touring had left damage. And suddenly, the very tool that had built his career was at risk of failing him. He underwent surgery to repair the inflammation and strain. But the healing process, grueling. He was told not to sing, not to speak too much, to rest. For a man whose identity was built around music, silence felt like exile. But Vince didn't walk that road alone. It was the love of his family, Amy, his children, his close circle. That gave him strength. He leaned on them, and they never let him fall. Slowly, patiently, he began to heal. Not just physically, but emotionally. Because the truth is, Vince Gill's life has been a tapestry of triumph and tragedy, woven with both heartbreak and hope, a legacy beyond the stay. Through all of it, the grief, the financial losses, the accidents, the surgeries, Vince kept one thing constant. His heart. He never stopped writing, never stopped caring, never stopped showing the world what it means to live through music. One song, above all, defines that heart. Go Rest High on That Mountain. Written after his brother Bob's death, this song became an anthem for the grieving. It was Vince's soul poured out in lyrics and melody, a tribute not just to Bob, but to everyone who's ever lost someone they loved. And it resonated. To this day, it's considered one of the most moving pieces in country music history. But Vince's legacy is not just about one song. It's about 100 hit songs, 22 Grammy Awards, and decades of influence. It's about a man whose voice could bring an arena to tears, and whose quiet kindness left an even deeper impression. His authenticity, his ability to sing like he was speaking just to you, earned him love that went far beyond the music charts. Vince didn't just make music, he made people feel, beyond the spotlight. But maybe what truly makes Vince Gill a legend is not just what he gave on stage, but what he gave off it. He's been a mentor to rising artists, a constant figure at benefit concerts, a quiet supporter of countless charities. He gave his time, he gave his voice, he gave his heart, whether performing for disaster relief, children's hospitals, or music education. Vince made it clear, fame only matters if it's used to lift others up. He showed us that kindness, generosity, and humility aren't side notes in a successful life. They're the melody. The brush with death. Keith Urban's story intertwines. Just like Vince, Keith Urban has weathered his share of storms. In 2007, while riding his motorcycle to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting in Sydney, Keith found himself in a terrifying situation. A paparazzi photographer began chasing him through traffic. What started as a pursuit for a photo quickly became a fight for survival. Keith lost control of the bike and crashed. Miraculously, he survived without major injuries. But that brush with death changed him. It reminded him how fragile life is, and how quickly everything can be taken away. The most shocking part, the photographer who had chased him, instead of snapping pictures, helped Keith up, made sure he was okay. No camera, just human kindness. Keith later said he was struck by the irony of the moment. The very person who put him in danger was the same one who showed him grace. That single moment reshaped how he saw fame, privacy, and the unpredictable nature of life. Keith's climb to the top. Before the fame and Grammy Awards, Keith Urban was just a kid from Australia, with a guitar, a dream, and a plane ticket to Nashville. He released his first album in 1990 in Australia. But the real breakthrough came in 1999, when he debuted in the US with hits like You're Everything, But for the Grace of God. The latter gave him his first one on the US country charts. His sound, a fusion of country, pop, and rock, was different, and people noticed. From that moment, Keith's career took flight. He became one of the most recognizable names in country music, all while navigating grief, sobriety, and the pressures of stardom. Two legends, one truth. In their own way, both Vince Gill and Keith Urban have shown us something timeless. That music, real music, comes from lived experience, from pain, from loss, from love. Their stories remind us that behind every hit song, behind every award, there's a human being, fighting, healing, growing. And through it all, they chose to sing anyway, not just for the fame, but for the connection, for the healing, for the love of the music. More than a star, Keith Urban's rise. What made Keith Urban truly stand out from other artists wasn't just his voice, or his looks, or even the hits. It was his relentless passion for the craft. He kept producing hit after hit, earning Grammy Awards, ACMs, CMAs. But more than that, he was building a connection with fans across the globe. His journey was the kind that many dream of, but few ever achieve. The big break. Keith's true breakthrough came in 2001, when he won Top New Male Vocalist at the Academy of Country Music Awards, and the Horizon Award from the Country Music Association. Those two awards didn't just come with trophies. They came with recognition. They said to the world, Keith Urban has arrived. In 2002, he dropped the album Golden Road, and everything changed. The lead single, Somebody Like You, dominated the charts. 6 straight weeks at #1. From that moment, the hits kept coming. You'll Think of Me, Grammy winner 2005. Stupid Boy, Grammy winner 2007. Dozens more that blended rock, country, and pop into a sound that was unmistakably Keith. Then came a moment that every country artist dreams of, the Grand Ole Opry. In 2012, Keith was inducted, cementing his legacy in the very heart of country music tradition. That same year, he lent his guitar brilliance to Tim McGraw's Highway Don't Care, featuring Taylor Swift, a collaboration that proved again Keith wasn't just a singer. He was a musician's musician, versatile, skilled, and endlessly creative. The heart behind the hits, charity work, and giving back. Despite all the accolades, Keith never lost touch with his roots. From his humble beginnings in Australia to the heights of country stardom, he's always believed in giving back. And when his father, Robert, died of cancer in 2015, that mission became personal. My dad was the reason I fell in love with music, Keith once shared. Losing him changed me. He poured that grief into action, supporting cancer research, donating to places like St. Jude's and Stand Up to Cancer, and performing at charity concerts to raise millions. But Keith's generosity didn't stop there. In 2017, he played a major role in the All In for the Gambler tribute concert